Oh, ready now, are we? Okay. So getting back to these asking really tricky questions and complicated ones, the basic answer is to break a complicated question down into its parts and then give heading answers to them and invite people then to pursue whichever bit of the answer they want to. But say, I can't talk about all of it because that would take sort of 4 lots of 2 minutes. That's 8 minutes. That's too long. So you can talk about this or that or the other. So if you've said to them, I had my previous career with this firm, I had 3 parts to it, break it down. If they then say, well, which job did you like the best? Well, that's a bit of a trick question, and you should have anticipated that one. And so you then say, well, actually, I like the subject matter of finance better, but actually I did miss the meeting the customers every day on the meat counter, even the grumpy ones. And again, it appears like you've just sort of thought of it there and then, but actually it isn't. You've thought about that before, and that was one of the questions that you anticipated, and then there's a subtext going on there, which is, yeah, I can handle the technical stuff of finance, that's easy for me, but actually I like customers, which is the sort of the two sides of the business. There's technical stuff and then there's customer facing business, and you're saying I can handle both bits of it. So that's what you need to have anticipated how they will ask those questions and then break them down. You don't give it all in one answer, you break it down into two. And of course, bring a couple of questions of your own to ask them in the interview. You won't get to ask more than one or two at the very most, and you'll have to play it by ear as to which sounds the best at the time. So you need to have prepared 4 or 5, and then when they say at the end, if there's a bit of time, well, have you got any questions you'd like to ask us? Make it a good one, but don't make it too hostile. It might be a tricky one. If it's gone very well and they've opened up to you and you've opened up to them a bit, then you could ask them a more insightful, difficult question. But if it's being much more arm's length stilted, I wouldn't ask them a really difficult question. I would keep it a little bit easier. Right, how do you sell your skills? Now let's look at this technique called the STAR technique. What you do is you create a little story for each skill that you want to sell. And we call these vignettes. It's the French word for a little stamp, and it's a little tiny picture of you at work doing something. And that little picture illustrates you doing something. It is not a general question, oh, I love customers and blah, 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 or I'm really, the world's greatest expert at Excel. That talk is cheap and is generally not believed, and that's not going to get you very far in an interview. You need to be quite specific. So we use this STAR technique. And that is where you take a general question and you break it down and say, well, for instance, when I was at university or at school or scouts or at work, and you make it a very specific context, a situation. And then you explain the background, what you and your team of people were doing at the time, or perhaps what you on your own were doing. You had a boss who told you to do this and you had to do that. All right, that's the situation. Okay, that was the sort of the task that you had to do. And then we need action, and this has got to be you personally. You may be describing a team action, fine, but this has got to be, what did you personally do within the team that led the team to do something else? So this is not the time to be modest, but it's not the time to boast too much, just to calmly, modestly state the facts. And then we have the outcome, the result. What did it do? Was it any good? Well, hopefully, yes. So this is why you've chosen that action. So this is where you have to think of what your story is to illustrate some skill that you have in a practical situation, that you don't just know the words and the theory and how it ought to work. You can actually put it into progress. So let's give an example. How did you overcome difficulties when working in a team? Well, you say as part of, a module at school or university, we had to complete a piece of group work. A member of our group had very strong ideas and was unwilling to listen to alternative views. This was frustrating for all of us. If the group was to start functioning effectively, we were going to have to get this individual to contribute to the group's behavior, or else we would be operating with a man down. So some people said that we should complain to the module leader about this person, but I suggested that I would speak to this person, give him an opportunity to address the problem directly, and tell him how the rest of the group was feeling, and that it'd be better, in fact, to share our ideas, which would mean that he'd have to listen to other people's views. Now, when I said this, the result was the individual was unaware of the problems caused by his attitude and was grateful to me for telling him. He subsequently apologized to the rest of the team. That's important to the whole team. And then we worked much more effectively as a team, and the result was we gained a B+ grade for our work or whatever. Okay, that is a textbook example of how to use the STAR technique to show that you can work in a group or team to create things, that you see problems, you proactively take responsibility for them. No one said to you, you need to sort this out. It became apparent to you that you did need to sort this problem out, and then you suggested a course of action to your team members when they were going to do more extreme things, and it was accepted. You tried, you took the initiative, you did the effort, and the result was this person was brought back in the team again and contributed to a good result. So there's a very good example of you helping a group achieve a group result. So when we come to look at these things and to set such a STAR thing up, we have to first of all be specific. You have to locate it in a particular time. You have to be able to say, yes, back in 2018 or whatever. It has to be sort of clear in your mind. This is what we mean by working on your vignettes. Make it real, make it specific. And then the who did this? Well, it can be we, my boss, blah, blah, blah. But at a certain point, you must be using the word I, right? Because this is the chance. They're not going to employ we, the whole of group B, G or C or whatever. They may offer the job to you, so that's when you need to say I did this. And then the action. You've got to specify some kind of action that you took. It might have been to suggest an idea or to persuade people or something else like that. That's fine. Those are people working skills. And then it must achieve a specific outcome that you can say, yes, I made that happen. As a result of my actions, that thing happened. Okay. And the second thing, of course, is you've got to be concise. You've got to boil long and complicated stories that may have taken place over the course of 6 months or something down into something that you can tell as a story. Almost like a joke, really. People who tell good jokes have worked long and hard at getting them down to precisely that number of words, and getting it right, not over embellishing it. So you've got to be concise. You must tell your story in 90 seconds and then finish on a positive note, like the old Fonz. This is an excellent example of a slightly amusing one done by The Guardian. So do have a look at that. It's on the slides that accompany this lecture, and just flick it through. It's only about 3 minutes long. Okay. So typical interview questions that you can get include things like this. Tell us about a time you had to solve. Describe a situation. Describe a time. Tell us about a time. And sometimes they don't have that. They just say, well, are you able to work in a group? And you've got to translate a very general question like that into something that's more specific, and then you can start to use your STAR technique. If you stay up at the very general level, I'm really good with this skill and that skill and so on, and you're not relating facts, talk is cheap. This is not going to persuade anyone of anything, mostly. It just says, well, he can talk a good game, but can he actually do it? And the whole point of an interview is to get some feel for whether this person really can do it. That's why they've asked you to come for an interview. And then after the interview, there are some key skills that you must do, and this is just good practice. I had to teach myself, but it is generally very good. First of all, when you come out of the interview, you'll go like this, delighted and so on. You relax, and you sit down, and it's very easy to just say, "Oh, I can sit down and relax and do a crossword or watch a video or something." No, actually do that just for 2 minutes, and then sit down and calmly write yourself a note of how it went while it's still fresh in your mind. It won't take you very long, and you'll be able to write all that you want to about that interview in 10 or 15 minutes, and that's it. If you're trying to do it 2 days later, you'll forget stuff. You'll give an impression rather than you'll get your facts sloppy and wrong, which might come back to haunt you. So do it while it's fresh. So if you've driven up to an interview, sit in your car before driving off. Sit down and just write yourself 10 minutes worth of notes on it. If you're taking a bus or a train, on the train, don't relax. Before you do, write yourself this note. And the kind of questions that you should ask yourself is, what went right? What should I have prepared better for? What could have been a better answer? Were there any ones that I gave them that example? Oh, I wish I'd given them that answer. Okay, think why you didn't, that would be a better answer. And the next time, if you're in an interview and they ask you that question, just remember, that's the better case, the better vignette. Okay. Also ask yourself afterwards, well, how do you feel afterwards? Did you like it? Do you like the people? If they offered you the job, if tomorrow morning you get an email and say, we really liked you and we're going to offer you the job, would you accept it? Okay, just think about that. Of course, then, when you've written this note, file it somewhere safe, but do file it properly so that you could find it. After all, it's unlikely you'll be interviewed by the same firm, but you might be interviewed by the same firm for a different job in a year's time, and suddenly you'll have forgotten a lot of the details of that interview. So it's really important to do that kind of thing. Or you might go for an interview with another firm in the same industry, or a rival, in 2 months' time. All right. Well, very useful to come back to this interview and look at your notes and think, oh yeah, they really wanted to know about this and pushed me on that, and that seemed important to them. Okay, so write yourself that note, keep it, and make sure, of course, that they never see that note. And then, of course, make sure to pull out that note and revise it before you apply for any job with any kind of similar firm. That's when that note will really have been useful. And in fact, just one more thing to say on that, which is, in this case, use this note to self as part of your reflection in the assignment. So you should, after the interview, go and write yourself a little note about what went right and what went wrong, and use that in the reflection in assignment 3. Right.